Condos with a pool like this sell for an average of $2.5 million in Buckhead, Atlanta. This is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in all of Atlanta. But if you plan on moving to Buckhead, there are a few other important details you need to know about. The second thing that you must know before moving to Buckhead is that Buckhead is not really like a suburb of Atlanta. It's more like a district of Atlanta, like downtown or midtown. Buckhead is like the uptown district of the city of Atlanta with a bunch of neighborhoods within Buckhead. Again, it's not a suburb. It's not like Marietta or Alpharetta or Johns Creek that's outside of Atlanta. Buckhead is within the city of Atlanta. And the thing that makes Buckhead different from downtown and midtown is that the cost of living in Buckhead is much higher. This is certainly one of the highest cost of living districts in all of Atlanta. So Buckhead is definitely one of the nicest parts of the city of Atlanta. Interstates 75 and 85 kind of go on the outside of this area, but there's also Peachtree Road and Northside Drive that run north and south through this area. This is going to be the area that is closest to some of the other suburbs that we talk about on this channel, like Marietta and Alpharetta and Woodstock, but it's also going to be very far from like the Atlanta airport because Buckhead is on the northern side of Atlanta and the airport is on the southern side. It could take a while to get to the airport from this area. Without a doubt, the general vibe that you feel in Buckhead is completely different than like downtown or midtown. Buckhead has the most beautiful high-rise buildings, the nicest restaurants, the nicest shops. And when you're walking through Buckhead, you can certainly feel it's a much nicer area than some of the other parts of Atlanta. So if you're thinking about moving to this area or you just want to know what it's like to live in Buckhead or any of the parts of Atlanta, here is my phone number and my email address. And I really don't mind if you call, text, or email me anytime. I have people reaching out to me all the time, and I'm so thankful for everyone who reaches out to ask about moving to the Atlanta area. Of course, I'm really happy to help with any of your moving needs to the Atlanta area. So Buckhead is definitely one of the best parts of Atlanta and is one of the most desirable parts of Atlanta. But there's something that you should know about this area that has really been happening in the last few years that's kind of becoming a source of conflict. And lately, there has been a lot more crime in Buckhead than we have seen years ago. So when you drive through Buckhead today, what you're going to notice is that there's a much bigger police presence here. Typically, you don't see a lot of police in areas that are nicer neighborhoods, nicer areas. You typically don't see a lot of police presence there, like in Alpharetta or Marietta. It's not very common to see police patrolling the streets all the time. But in Buckhead lately, you're going to see more police presence, and this all has to do with the amount of crime that we have been seeing there. The police want to make sure that everybody is aware of that police presence. They want to make sure that everybody knows they are out and about and making sure that people are safe and that the crime that we have been seeing more lately in Buckhead is coming down. So this is something that you need to really think about if you plan on moving to Buckhead. And this crime and this police presence has actually been part of a much bigger thing that's going on in Buckhead. There has been a push lately for Buckhead to separate from Atlanta. By the way, this is the fourth thing that you must know about living in Buckhead. And so Buckhead and the residents of Buckhead have been trying to become their own city. They're trying to separate from Atlanta so that they can develop their own police department, their own fire department, their own emergency services, because many people in Buckhead feel like they're very different from the rest of Atlanta, and they feel like they haven't been served by the police enough And this is why we see so much more police presence in this area. Now, as you can imagine, because Buckhead is one of the nicest parts of Atlanta, the majority of the taxes in this city come from the residents of Buckhead. So Atlanta is not going to be very quick to let that area become its own city. There are quite a few cities around the metro Atlanta area, like Johns Creek, which recently, I think in 2006, 2007, became its own city. They separated from Alpharetta. We've seen it quite a bit. Even the city of Milton separated from Alpharetta and became its own city. And Sandy Springs, again, I believe somewhere in the early 2000s, separated from Atlanta to become its own city. They developed their own public services. And so Buckhead is trying to do the same thing, but Atlanta is desperately holding on to that area and not allowing them to separate themselves from Atlanta. In my opinion, because most of the taxes come from this area of Buckhead, it's not very likely that Buckhead will become its own area. Then they're not going to become their own city and develop their own public services. This is something that I don't think will happen anytime in the near future. The fifth thing that you should know about living in Buckhead is that this is where you're going to find the nicest shopping, the Nordstroms, the Versace, Gucci. This is all found in Buckhead, and it's located in one of the areas where there's actually a couple malls. There's Lenox Mall, and then there's Phipps Plaza. In Phipps is where you're going to find the most high-end shopping. Also in Phipps, you'll find Saks Fifth Avenue, Dolce, and then along with that high-end shopping is also the high-end restaurants. Aria, which is on East Paces Ferry Road, is one of the restaurants there in the Buckhead area. Also, Ruth Chris Steakhouse is on Peachtree Road, and Nobu Atlanta is just behind Phipps Plaza. Along with those high-end shopping and restaurants is also the average home prices in Buckhead. And this is the sixth thing that you must know before living here, is you're also going to find the highest average home prices in Buckhead. Right now, the average home price in Buckhead is about $950,000, with homes as low as $800,000 and as high as $12 million. This is where many of these celebrities come to live. This is where you're going to find some of the biggest estates in all of Georgia, and this makes Buckhead certainly the most desirable area to live in all of Atlanta. And then the seventh thing that you must know about living in Buckhead before moving here is that there are many great things about living in Buckhead, which is why it's one of the most popular neighborhoods. But there are also some red flags associated with living in Buckhead. And many of these issues are deal breakers for people who are considering moving to Buckhead as their new home. A balanced view of a neighborhood can be the difference between moving to the right neighborhood and moving to the wrong neighborhood. This is why I made a video of the pros and cons of living in Buckhead. Check it out right here. I'll see you there.